on right now Mosab Abu Toha, who's with us. Thank you, Mosab, for joining us. Um, and just repeat in a very brief way the content of the article because I just dealt with two villages with two universities. One was the college I went to, Lemoyne, and the other was the um, what happened at University of Michigan. They were different in a way, but in some ways reflected a, a tendency we're seeing of both pro-Israel groups and individual donors feeling that they're losing the debate and therefore using whatever pressure they can to silence the debate. And in this case, even just silence certain words. I'm on the Democratic National Committee, and we had a resolution that mentioned the word genocide, and we were told that the word had to leave, had to be taken out because it was hurtful. Um, the author of the resolution said, I'll tell you what's hurtful. It's genocide is hurtful. And not being able to say it is even more hurtful. Um, University of Michigan was in a way different. It was the president of the faculty senate who was speaking before the graduates and praised both women who led the fight to have women admitted to the university, the first Jewish professor at the university who opened the door for non-discriminatory hiring, the the Black Action movement that opened the door for admission of black students, and then praised the students who protested what Israel was doing because they opened the minds of the university to the suffering taking place in among Palestinians. And for that, the same thing happened. The president issued a letter saying that it was sorry that it was hurtful to people, et cetera, et cetera. I felt compelled to write it because it's not just those two places. We're seeing it happen everywhere. And because it happened to Mosab Abu Toha, I was especially troubled because he's a Pulitzer Prize winning writer whose poetry is so sensitive and thoughtful. And the students were moved by what he had to say and were deeply troubled when what he had to say was viewed as so controversial and threatening. So, Mosab, thank you for joining
So
us.
I'll read one poem from my second poetry collection. It's called My Dreams as a Child. My dreams as a child. I still have dreams about a room filled with toys my mother always promised we could have if we were rich. I still have dreams about seeing the refugee camp from a window on a plane. I still have dreams about seeing the animals I learned about in third grade: elephant, giraffe, kangaroo, and wolf. I still have dreams about running for miles and miles with no border blocking my feet, with no unexploded bombs scaring me off. I still have dreams about my favorite team playing soccer on the beach, me waiting for the ball to come my way and run away with it. I dream still about my grandfather, how much I want to pick oranges with him in Jaffa. But my grandfather died. Jaffa is occupied, and oranges no longer grow in his weeping groves. So this poem was written while I was doing my MFA in Syracuse University. If you don't mind, I want to read one new poem which was
Mhm,
written during the ongoing genocide.
mhm.
Some of the sections in this poem were written while I was in Gaza, some while I was in Egypt after leaving, after 2 months of the genocide, after I managed to leave. And then some of them while I was here in the States watching my relatives, my friends, my students, my neighbors being butchered and burnt alive in their homes, in their tents, in school shelter. A hand is no longer a hand. After the airstrike near a mulberry tree and some wild plants, they found the unmoving body of a boy. An eye was completely closed, the other was half open, watching for any piece of shrapnel that could kill him again. In my city, the army rounded up all the men, forced them to stand against the wall of the primary school. The hands raised touched the newly painted bricks as if getting prepared to play the piano before the bullets drummed on shivering heads and backs. During the airstrikes, we sat on the tiled, dusty floor, stock still as pills in a bottle in a pharmacy, in a town where nobody gets sick, where everybody is dead. I'll skip this part. A hand is no longer a hand as long as it does not find another hand to shake, as long as it does not find food to share with others, as long as it does not find a pen to write, as long as it's the only meat a dog can find to eat, as long as it goes missing forever. I'll skip this part. You get displaced, you get wounded, yet survive. You jump off your cot when a missile hits the hospital. You shelter in a tent. You get displaced again. You get displaced again and again on crutches or a wheelchair. You get gazoned a zillion times. If we stay in our houses, they bomb us. If we shelter in a school, they bomb us. If we run to a hospital, they bomb us. If we move into a tent, they bomb us. If we go to a toilet, they bomb us. If we run from an airstrike, they bomb us. If we do not do any of this, they still bomb us. If we stay like a tree or temporarily leave like a leaf in the fall, they bomb us. But spring will come, and those who bomb us, will find no bombs among the flowers. We will be on the trees bathing in the sun, and those who bomb us, will have no sun, no place to rest, no legs to run. He never woke up. I can see a juicer, a mattress, a blanket, what remains of a closet, what remains of a basket, and maybe a potato or an onion. The dust makes it difficult to distinguish a potato from an onion, but I can distinguish death. I can see it in the open mouth, in the closed eyes. I can see every one of us under the rubble. So this is a hand is no longer a hand. I mean, during the Israeli-made starvation in Gaza, which started early 2024. I mean, thank God I managed to leave Gaza. I mean, otherwise, my 3 kids and wife and I would have, struggled to find food. So not only were human beings starved in Gaza, and this is where the poem comes from, but also dogs and cats. And we have seen some stray dogs, eating the bodies of our loved ones who not only were killed, but whose bodies remained on the street while Israeli soldiers continue to open fire on ambulances or first responders to move the bodies away. And the poem, comes after a photo, or I think it was a video of a dog walking away from the body of someone, biting on a hand of someone. So that's why a hand is no longer a hand as long as it's the only food a dog can find to eat, as long as it goes missing forever. And so many things have gone missing forever in Gaza.
Thank you, Mosab. I want to pose the questions to you in a different form than I wrote in the article.
Yeah.
What you experienced was real. What you experienced was incredibly painful. The fact that you can't talk about it and call it what it is has to be even more painful.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you to tell your story in poetry, and be told that it makes people feel uncomfortable and is identified with anti-Semitism?
Yeah. I mean, I don't only have the right, to share my story and to speak out, but I have the duty as someone who has survived. I mean, Jim, I did not only survive, I was a victim of one of the Israeli airstrikes in 2009, in January 2009. I was 16 years old and I was hit by at least 4 pieces of shrapnel, 2 in my forehead, 1 in my neck, 1 in my cheek, and also a 5th in my shoulder. I still have the scars from that airstrike. So I mean, I not only have the right, just like anyone else, have the right to speak about their love stories, their family stories, their nature, nature stories. I mean, this story is not only about me. This is why I not only have the right to speak about it, but it is my duty, because it is the story of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, many of whom are children. I mean, I would feel guilty to, I mean, having survived, the Israeli genocide in Gaza. And by the way, I was, unfortunately, one of the first people to call it a genocide while I was in Gaza. I have a post on social media that you can go back to on October 18th, so 11 days after October 7th, that I called it a genocide. Stop the genocide. So for me, it is a genocide not only because the Israeli officials have threatened to carry out war crimes and crimes against the humanity, but because Israel has the ability, not only the military ability, but also the diplomatic support from the United States and other governments. So I saw it. I mean, the thing about genocide is not only the punishment of genocide. No, it is the prevention of genocide. This is the point, right? So it
Yeah.
is it is a genocide. I saw it in my own eyes. Before October 7th. I was born in a refugee camp. My parents were born in refugee camps. My grandparents and my great grandparents were expelled from Jaffa in 1948. And I see Mr. Hassan Hamami, who was born in Jaffa. My greetings to you. My grandparents were born and lived in Saknit Darwish and also Hayy al-Jabaliya in Jaffa. So my grandparents and my great grandparents lived and died in the refugee camp in Gaza. And I witnessed, the Israeli brutality and also the Israeli siege. The fact that so many medications have gone, missing in Gaza. So many cancer patients have died before October 7th because Israel controls, who gets in and who goes out. So for them, to state that explicitly while carrying out, massive airstrikes, and for me as a father of 3 children to struggle to get water for my children. I was in Jabalia, by the way, after October 7th. We moved to stay in Jabalia. And I was struggling to find food for my children. And also water, not only to drink, but also to bathe. There was no water to wash your clothes. So many people, I'm sure, have grown, diseases because of the hygiene crisis in Gaza. These are, right now, these are insignificant
And
concerns.
if I can add,
Yeah,
that's not new.
yeah,
I first time I went to Jabalia was in 93, I think it was. I saw kids playing in water. It was a pool of water. And I said, it didn't rain. And he said, no, it's open sewage.
yeah,
And that was in 93. The Israelis had done nothing throughout the occupation to do anything about the infrastructure. And people were living in those situations. Um, and so yeah, anyway, my memories of Jabalia, my memories of Deir el-Bella, and the crisis of living in both places just stays with me. Seeing them now leveled
sure.
is a very different kind of crisis. I'm still struck by the fact, though, that as horrendous as October 7th was for the Israelis, the cries of the victims there are still being used to drown out
Mm,
the cries of tens of thousands of possibly hundreds of thousands of victims in Gaza. They don't matter. Criticizing what happened there is called anti-Semitic because it makes people feel uncomfortable. But what happened on October 7th is always history began and ended on October 7th. That's the mindset. Everything after is incidental.
yeah.
And being called that then must be, like I said, it must be additionally painful.
Mm, mm. I think it is, you know, you know what? I think it is an understatement. I think what should make people uncomfortable is that this is only called a genocide. I think genocide is an understatement, and I'll tell you why. The genocide that Israel has been carrying out, the war crimes, the crimes against humanity that Israel has been carrying out, is not only carried out and perpetrated against human beings. No, it is worse than that. It has been carried out against refugees. And this is a double crime. So not only did Israel expel Palestinians from their homes in 1948, and
Hmm.
it continued to do so. We know from the massacre of Ailabun in Lower Galilee, the massacre against Christian communities there, because Israel wanted to expel those who managed to remain. Anyway, so that's October 1948. So the fact that Israel has been not only has expelled these people from their homes, not only did it wipe out, and we know that from the history about Yafa, many neighborhoods like Al Manshia, like Al Ajami, like Sakin Al Darwish, these neighborhoods, so people were not only expelled from there, but their neighborhoods and their houses were wiped out. And not only did Israel prevent people from going back to their homes, which is not only a human right. This is not only it's not a national right. The right to return is not only a Palestinian right as a national right. No, it is individual right. Because these homes that Palestinians were expelled from, these were their properties, and I have every single right and duty to continue to demand the right to return collectively and individually. So not only
You
were
know, there's a universal declaration of human rights, and people use it selectively, right? They'll talk about the freedom of religion clause. We actually created an entire commission in the U.S. government focused on that. But there is an article on the right of refugees to return to their homes.
yeah.
It's a universally respected right, and yet it is honored, as they say, more in the breach than in the observance. Sorry, I
I
interrupted you.
can't even imagine that we need this to be part of any declaration. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a fundamental right. It's like it's like saying I have the right to breathe, or I have the right to to open my eyes. This is non-negotiable, and we don't need such rights even to be part of any declaration. So it's yeah. So not only did Israel expel these people, not only did it wipe out their villages and their homes and stole their belongings, not only did it prevent them from going back to their homes, but worse, and this is why it is more than a genocide, Israel has carried out crimes against these refugees. 70% of the population in Gaza are refugees and their descendants. I'm one of the descendants of those refugees. So Israel, by the way, it is so racist that the world continues to speak about October 7th as if it is where history starts. And we also heard that some Western mainstream media saying that Hamas perpetrated the war crimes against Holocaust survivors. But how many times? This is a question to everyone. How many times did you hear anyone talking about Israel's killing of Nakba survivors of 1948? If you look up the names of those who were killed after October 7th, the Palestinian people, there are over 1,000 Nakba survivors who were killed. Over 1,000 people who were born before 1948. These are Nakba survivors. We don't hear anyone talking about these victims. Over 1,000. But they don't see us as equals. We don't deserve, the dignity of living in our homeland. They are racist, but we refuse to do that, and we will continue to speak out, and we will not, bow to the pressure that is put on us, because enough is enough. The entire world has been watching a genocide unfolding in Gaza, and Jim, this is very important. This genocide is not only committed against the Palestinian people, it has been committed against everyone who has been watching it unfolding, live stream. This is a genocide against our humanity, our feelings. This is why everyone. I mean, you should be encouraging. A president like Lemoyne College's president should be inviting more speakers. Yeah, I mean, come tell us about yourself. I mean, I'm not a historian. I'm not a political analyst. I'm not coming even to speak about stories. I am the story. The stories that I have been sharing were not stories about my grandparents or my great-grandparents, about, Jaffa, the history of the Ottoman rule, the British. No. These are all my stories. My wounds, my home, the refugee camp, my cousins who were killed, my father-in-law who was killed, my wife and I mentioned that in my letter. My wife and I lost over 100 relatives between first cousins, second cousins, and relatives. And worse than that, there is nothing worse than the killing of one soul. But worse than that, many of these victims remain under the rubble as we speak. How
Mhm.
many times did you hear any government official demanding humanitarian missions to go to Gaza to retrieve the bodies of those whose bodies remain under the rubble? I have so many family members who were killed over the past few months and they haven't been buried. They lie beneath the rubble of their homes. I mean, this is more than a. These are things that everyone should know, and we have been talking about that. So for us to speak out against these things and to speak up about these things, and for nothing to happen, this is more than a genocide.
Mhm.
And college presidents and university presidents should be inviting more speakers, not condemn speakers for speaking about their stories and using the right words. So it's the word genocide is not right because Amnesty International called it so. The UN, Israeli historians and scholars of genocide and Holocaust. No, as a Palestinian, with all due respect, I'm not waiting for anyone to call it a genocide. I called it a genocide. I saw it. I recognized it, and that's enough.
Yeah. Listen, I want to see if we can get to a couple of questions, but because it was at Lemoyne, and because I went to Lemoyne, and because the person who was an early mentor of mine was a Jesuit, Daniel Berrigan, there are two things that Dan said that I never forgot. One was um, he said, "You never tell an audience what they want to hear; you tell them what they need to hear."
Yeah,
And on the same token, I always tell the story that when I went to Lemoyne, I was a Barry Goldwater supporter and a reader of Ayn Rand who believed in the kind of, ultra conservative um, individualism. And running into Dan Berrigan made me uncomfortable. And I thank God he made me uncomfortable because it's the person I am today. And so discomfort is opens the door to learning. If you're comfortable, if you're in your cocoon and you see and feel nothing that disturbs that comfort, you go nowhere. And so I thank you for making us uncomfortable. Even those of us who can feel the pain can now feel it more acutely. Yeah, it makes you uncomfortable. But thank God we can feel uncomfortable because then we can actually do something. And we can
an
change
academic,
reality.
like the president of Lemoyne College. I think what should have made her uncomfortable is the fact that Israel destroyed the majority of Gaza's universities and destroyed most of the schools in Gaza, and that so many students, especially kids, haven't gone to school for the third year. This should be the kind of statement she should put out. She should express concern about the education in Gaza, about children,
Mhm.
right? About academia in Gaza. But to condemn someone for speaking about that, it's so insulting, to the college. I'm so sorry. I mean, I feel bad for Lemoyne College because so many people around the country have never heard of Lemoyne, but now they unfortunately they got to know about it through this. So I feel sad for the students, for the alumni who do not agree with the president of that college. So this is bad, and I think once I mentioned in my letter that conflating criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism. This is the most dangerous thing, because okay, here's the thing. I'm not that stupid, but imagine I was naive. Oh, so you mean if I criticize Israel, it means that I'm criticizing Jewish people? Okay, so next time in my talks, in my social media posts, I will start saying Jewish people killed my father-in-law. Jewish people are perpetrating massacres. But I've never used that language, right? Because I distinguish between being a Jew and being a Zionist and being an Israeli.
Questions, Jen, we got any?
Yes, you have Samir, who's just noted that I think to Mosab's point, I think this whole argument is because they don't want the narrative about Israel to be challenged in the West. That's what makes them uncomfortable. And the sort of the constant conflating by, as you noted in your article, Jim, pro-Israel groups conflating Jewishness with Israel. Maybe if you guys could expand on that.
Yeah. So this is a question for me.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I just mentioned that conflating, Jewishness with Zionism or being an Israeli. This is one of the most terrible, tragic, I think I would say. But that's not something that I, as a Palestinian, would fall into. I distinguish between being a Jewish, between being a Zionist, between being an Israeli. Um, and we should be avoiding that. It is truly anti-Semitic to say that criticizing Israel is anti-Semitic, because if Israel represents the Jewish people, then this is really very terrible for the Jewish people. This is
Mhm.
very terrible, and this would put Jewish people in danger from people who don't distinguish between
And
Judaism.
unfortunately, that's been the goal of some of the pro-Israel groups here in the States, which is to create that conflation and by arguing that if you criticize Israel, you're criticizing the Jewish people because Israel's the state that represents the Jewish people, and therefore what flows from that does put people at great risk. And it ends up also compromising and putting at risk the significant number of Jewish people who are opposed to what Israel's doing, who are then viewed by these establishment pro-Israel groups as capos, as people who are betrayers of their own people, which they're not. They're actually carrying out the prophetic voices of Isaiah and others in the Old Testament who warned against this kind of behavior. Jenny, anything else?
There were folks that were like lamenting how, as U.S. citizens, our taxpayer dollars are forcing us to be supportive of this against our own will. And I wonder if Mossab has anything he could offer to us as like what we should be doing or
Yeah.
what is possible for us.
Uh, yeah, I think from your places here in the United States as U.S. citizens, and also in everyone's individual capacity, I believe that there are so many things that you can do. I think the most important thing is empowering yourself with the education about the Palestinian issue, especially by reading and listening and inviting and amplifying Palestinian writers, Palestinian voices. And then, second of all, uh, demanding justice for the Palestinian people, because many people would say free Gaza, end the genocide, without putting that in the context of the Palestinian catastrophe that not only started in 1948 but way before, and I wouldn't even say since 1917. So the plight of the Palestinian people started with the Zionist, project. So I think it is very important to put all that, in the context of the Zionist racist project to annihilate the Palestinian people, replace them, kill them, whatever. So this is very important to speak, about these things. And I think third thing is, organizing, in your community and speaking to your representatives, to your senators, about the importance of ending the military support and also the unconditional military and diplomatic support to Israel, because that's the reason why my cousins, my nieces, my nephews, my sisters, I have three sisters who are living in tents in Gaza right now, and also other relatives continue to live not only in inhumane conditions, but live in uncertainty. What is coming next? What are some of the plans that are being put for them? The Palestinian people have not been in charge of their future because they have been put under a brutal military occupation, and the United States, and before it, Britain, has made sure that Israel can carry out whatever it wants, say whatever it wants with impunity. So this needs to end. The unconditional support for Israel, whether it's political, military, diplomatic, needs to end, because this is against the ethics of any modern civilization. And I'm
I
sorry
want
I
to
have
read a
many
letter,
minutes.
a final note from Julie Shoemaker Cohen. Thank you, Julie, for joining. She's at Another Jesuit University, Scranton, she said, I want to thank you, Mosab, for your work, for sharing your story, to say how regretful your treatment was in contradiction to the Jesuit and Catholic tradition.
Yeah.
She and values a commitment to truth, the upholding of human dignity, and the work of peace, justice, and equality. These developments are within our higher education, are problematic, but we also are hopeful that change in the broader society. Do you see that broader shift as a more important trend that will win out?
Yeah, I think lots of changes are happening, especially in the younger generation. I mean, here's the thing: the younger generation is not only learning about what's been happening in Palestine; they have been watching it. So there is no way of telling someone, "Oh, this did not happen," or "We did not know." No, there is no excuse for anyone who has seen and who has listened to the Palestinian catastrophe not to say anything, not to take a stand. You know, we just a few days, I mean, yesterday or 2 days ago, we have the Barcelona star, Lamine Yamal. He carried a Palestinian flag. An 18-year-old player has made a global impact by carrying the Palestinian flag, something that so many older people and people in power have never had the gut to stand for. So yeah, I think there are lots of changes, and unfortunately, uh, it has come about after the destruction of Gaza. I have to go very soon. I have a podcast that I think I mentioned to you,
Okay. Yes.
but you know, I told you about that this is more than a genocide, and I mentioned that Israel killed over 1,000 Nakba survivors. But I also didn't and forgot to mention that Israel wiped out two of the 8 refugee camps in the Gaza Strip. So just sit with that. Imagine you have been placed in a concentration camp, and Israel, and whoever country is occupying you, not only prevented you from going back to your home, or, you know, but has destroyed the concentration camp, and now you are living on the ruins or near the ruins of that concentration camp. And the dream of so many people in Gaza right now is not to return. Unfortunately, this is the fault of the UN, the United States, and so many governments, that people are not currently dreaming of going back to Jaffa or Haifa or Akka or Tabariya or Jerusalem. People in Gaza are dreaming of going back to the refugee camp. Because it was, I don't know, this has become home for them that now they are missing. And this is a crime in itself. Thank you.
I'm going to let you go, and I know we kept you longer than I said, but could you read the poem about your mother's ear?
May find hidden in my ear. One. So I had an ear surgery in the United States in 2020, and I wrote this poem. One. When you open my ear, touch it gently. My mother's voice lingers somewhere inside. Her voice is the echo that helps recover my equilibrium when I feel dizzy during my attentiveness. You may encounter songs in Arabic, poems in English I recite to myself, or a song I chant to the chirping birds in our backyard. When you stitch the cut, don't forget to put all these back in my ear. Put them back in order as you would do with the books on your shelf. 2. The drone's buzzing sound, the roar of an F-16, the screams of bombs falling on houses, on fields, and on bodies, of rockets flying away, rid my small ear canal of them all. Spray the perfume of your smiles on the incision. Inject the song of life into my veins to wake me up. Gently beat the drum so my mind may dance with yours, my doctor, day and night. This was published in March 2021.
God bless you. And thank you for being with us. And thank all of you for joining.